Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're having a fantastic day out there as we head on into this new week ahead. And Summer League has come to an end, and now we wait. We wait for preseason to arrive and see what little morsels we could find along the way to see if there's any more moves, any more big rumblings. I don't know. Usually, like, it's once you get to this time and seems like everybody hightails it to vacation, and we got to basically wait till Eurobasket to get along the way. But I did see something that was pretty intriguing this weekend. Tyler Herro, Miami Heat All-Star, has been posting some stuff on his Instagram, and he posted a couple pictures, and I found interesting. He put a montage of pictures. One of them, he had an owl, which I thought was pretty cool. I'd be like, you know what? I like wildlife. I don't know if I've ever gotten the chance to interact with an owl. Just be like, woohoo, woohoo, so wise. They actually say owls are stupid, but whatever. I'll tell you one that's not, Vlad Golden, because buckets at the end. There was a quote, by the way, before I get back into Tyler Herro, from Eric Glass, the Glass Man. And Coach Glass was talking about the motor of Vlad Golden. And I was like, oh, I don't know, I like that. And he had said on Vlad Golden, who had a monster final game in the Summer League, and he had said, Vlad Golden was really good for us. He plays so freaking hard out there. He plays so physical. You'd like to have him on the floor even longer, but he goes out so hard. Sometimes he burns himself out, and that's why we love him. And, yeah, man, I thought that was interesting. And even to tie maybe this into where I'm going to get to with Tyler, because Tyler posted a montage of pictures. It was not just of cool wildlife. He posted a picture of himself working out in the gym with Kel'el Ware. And he posted a couple of photos of him and Kel'el Ware in the lab. I don't know when these pictures were taken. I imagine sometime earlier in the summer. But Kel'el Ware in this working out with Tyler, getting some work in, and Kel'el appreciative in the comments of Tyler Herro and you know, getting some work in the summer. And Tyler Herro had mentioned at some point in the season that he had been with Kel'el Ware a lot during the season, and it intrigued me from the standpoint of this. You know, Tyler Herro is going to be 26 in the middle of this season, 25 years old, which that's pretty crazy. Tyler Herro's turning 26 years old. Where the hell did the time go with all these guys? Holy crap. And I am curious from his standpoint. Spell mentioned an interesting thing the other day, and he was talking about leadership on the team, right? And he had said that, you know, that he basically was I'm going to play the comments here for you, but he had basically talked about how leadership needs to be like almost more cohesive in a team. You know, it's not something that could just necessarily be, you know, one guy, one voice, all this thing, and that they need to lead as a group. But this is what he had to say on that.
You know, with Kevin, you know, that's tough. There is a business part of it. You know, the reality is the last couple of years, this group has been transitioning. The leadership has really been moving on more to Bam, you know, and it really has to be other guys too. Tyler, you know, stepping up. It can't just be one guy. You know, that way of being a captain before is still important, but you need a group that is embracing leadership at all levels. In today's NBA, I feel. And I think we have some potential, you know, with this group for more guys to step in. You know, like Tyler, like Norm. Norm's a vet. He's played in a lot of really important playoff games.
So I thought in that comment from Spo, interesting. He mentioned Tyler a couple of times. Yes, it was transitioning to Bam, and Bam obviously became the captain of the Miami Heat. But I thought interesting that, you know, there was that Tyler came to mind a couple of times. And I think it's interesting because now at this point in his career, has been through a lot, you know, has been through a lot of things and has had some really high highs, has had some pretty rotten moments, I think, with like getting injured at the start of a playoffs and, you know, and dealing with adversity of trade talks and maybe not being in a role you're super thrilled about. And I said this last year with him, you know, there was so much of a difference between the guy that came in 2 years ago to the guy who came in last year. Had just seemed like I don't know. I've used the term lighter. Like he just seemed like all of the burden of past years were still gone. And this really has nothing to do with like basketball stuff. I get it. You know, Tyler still has stuff to prove. We get you. We know. This is not really about that. But my point is, this is a guy who has definitely been through a lot in his basketball career. Obviously, there's a big year personally coming up with the whole extension thing that, you know, I'm sure will probably take care of itself as far as what the year is concerned and where things are at. It already seems like the drama of him not getting an extension in October seems like it's already been addressed. So unless Tyler Herro is going to sign something like really team friendly, I don't imagine it's going to be something that's resolved until the summer. I'm guessing just based on where all parties are at, based on his comments, based on Pat Riley's comments. But with him having a relationship, especially a close one with Kel'el, I thought that to be a pretty valuable thing because I think that Tyler can speak to Kel'el and have a good relation on Kel'el from the idea of like, hey, it doesn't always go swimmingly in your basketball career with expectations. Doesn't maybe come fast as you want. Maybe it doesn't come as, it doesn't always come in the role you want right away. And, you know, in some ways, I think that having a voice to him to Ware is a valuable thing. Tyler, like, boom, it was kind of more like a Kel'el burst onto the scene. You're making some big plays, but then like all of a sudden there's more things that you got to work on. It's not coming all as smoothly. And then there are criticisms and there are haters. And then there's maybe you wanting a role and the coach being like, you're not having that yet. And so you got to make the best of it, play your ass off to get a 6 man of the year. So I do think that Tyler Herro as a leader this year could be a very, very valuable thing for the team. And there's been said like, you know, they talked a lot about the whole clarity thing, but even last year with, the Jimmy thing, which I'm sure probably had to bother Tyler on some level, right? Like there was a point where it felt like him and Jimmy had kind of rekindled something and it had seemed like, you know, there was a point like, all right, we're going to ride on this together and we're going to see where this is at.
Spo, who's 1A?
Who's 1B?
My boy.
And all of a sudden, Jimmy Butler rats off a ship. And you're kind of in this odd spot of like, all right, what do I do from a basketball standpoint? What do I do from the hierarchy of the team? Where do we go from this all, right? And now I think that is going to be something that is going to be different this year because, you know, you are getting older. You've been in the league now for, this is going to be year 7 for Tyler Herro? Year 6 for Tyler Herro? That's a lot of time in the NBA. Like, the dude is like an established vet before he's 26 years old. So, yeah, year 7 for Tyler Herro. Whew, crazy, dude. Crazy. So I am curious to see what that value, where he finds that stuff, you know, this year. And I'm also curious to see like what this team does for him. I'm curious, you know, how having a Norman Powell on this team, right? Probably, you know, the most talented backcourt mate he's had offensively, certainly since Goran. And what was he, a teenager back then? And he got that for like 1 year. You know, certainly Kyle was a valuable guy to have next to him, but wasn't necessarily like a guy who loved throwing up a bunch of shots all the time. You had Terry. They never really got to play together because their injuries always seem to be at different times. So I'm also curious, how does that put him in a comfort zone as well? It's a really interesting thing. I think that these are going to be interesting areas of growth for Tyler Herro to see, you know, where he is at when it comes to this. But, you know, seeing those photos of him and Kel'el Ware and knowing that Kel'el had gone through, you know, I guess a little bit of adversity already this summer. And, you know, nobody on that roster has probably faced more critiques than Tyler, either from the fan base or whoever. And is always feeling like he needs to constantly prove himself, right? Because I think with Bam, Bam definitely gets his critiques and wears those criticisms and all that type of stuff. But also, like, everybody always understands, like, he's going to defend his ass off. You can't really take him off the floor. There's no real replicating that. It's not necessarily an offensive thing first. So if he doesn't make his shots, there's other things to lean on. And, he's just kind of always been like the Heat culture chosen one, which is one of those things where maybe it's not always the easiest to lean on. Like the guys who do everything right all the time, as far as like, he just goes about things the right way. And I'm not saying that Tyler doesn't, but Tyler's just had more stuff that's been out there with trade rumors and the 6-man thing and like all that the injury stuff, like all that stuff that he's had to overcome, getting called out by Pat Riley, being called fragile by Pat Riley. I don't think that Bam's had to do a lot of proving of that within the organization. Maybe on the outside noise, but not within the organization. And so now you've kind of been through all that. You've gotten to the other side of that. Now you're being told by your coach you need to be like, hey, we're going to turn to you as a leader. I remember talking to Spo a little bit last year about the Jimmy thing. And then and he talked about how like he and Jimmy need to like move the locker room in the right direction, right? And that was before we knew all hell was going to break loose. But, now that Jimmy's gone, like, Tyler and Bam are those guys, and we understand that Bam is the captain and whatnot, but Tyler Herro, being at this age, is going to be stepped in to maybe be more vocal, be a guy who is looked upon by his teammates to be the guy. And so seeing that he's already establishing some of that stuff in the offseason with Kel'el Ware was really, really cool to see. I thought it was like, and I know that that's not like the first time. I know that they've both mentioned that was already happening in the middle of last season, but now that the season's under its belt, I think it's good. Like he has got the guy who's like, all right, this is the guy I'm going to be side by side with to see, what the next step is for this summer. So interesting stuff there. By the way, happy birthday to Alec Burks as I record this. I don't know what's going on with his deal. I don't know if he's completely out on a regular deal because he made it known like at camp that he wanted to be back with the Miami Heat, and that roster spot's just kind of sitting there. So I don't know. No Dame, no Beal, all that stuff is gone. So like, do they turn to him? I mean, I don't think they're going to go get Russell Westbrook because, well, I just don't think they're going to get Russell Westbrook. That would be kind of a surprise one for me. So, and I kind of, I kind of feel like that spot's going to be like for a buyout big, somebody like that. I don't know who, but that's what that feels like that's being held there for. But I found that I find it interesting. Like, yeah, he was like pretty hopeful that this was going to be quick, make the job, the stuff happen, So I'm curious to see what ends up happening there with this. And now that, especially the whole Dame thing has passed, is that, where does that put the Heat with fixing that final roster spot? Speaking of the Dame thing, I saw this one clip. What's this Kevin O'Connor's deal, huh? Like, I'm trying to figure his ass out, right? Because he was the only guy who was given the Heat for drafting Kasparas Giacochonis, very strangely. And he comes out and he's like, he just was talking about the Dame thing and then like just decides to take like an unnecessary pot shot at Miami.
I just look forward to seeing how the Blazers build this out. And the fact Dame's going back, maybe it had to happen this way for Dame to find out the grass isn't always greener. He goes to Milwaukee. You feel like it's a championship situation. It's not. You wanted to go to Miami. That team has gone nowhere and is going nowhere.
I find a couple of these things interesting. One, he's not playing for a year. That was one thing that like I think completely got lost on a lot of people with this the Lillard thing. And I don't critique Damian Lillard for going to Portland. Although I got to be honest with you, I did see the pictures of Cronin in the background of these contract signings, and I was like, ugh. I can't fake like it didn't make me sick to my stomach. But like, you wanted to go to Miami and that team has gone nowhere and is going nowhere. Well, isn't that just isn't that just playing the changing the history narrative really, really cutely. Like, I've always found that interesting. It's like, oh, we've gone in this whole direction where it's like, oh yeah, they were going over. It's like, but the whole reason everybody was making a stink, did it not feel like when Damian Lillard was doing this and the Heat were a step away, did it not feel like this joint effort to make sure, no, that's not going to happen for that franchise? Like, it's hard not to feel picked on and all that stuff. And it's like, they went nowhere. It's like, well, yeah, they went nowhere. What do you mean? The entire thing blew up in their face, and their two rivals got better, and they got worse in the same regard. But you're acting like if he did go there, like it was going to be a disaster. It's like, I still don't buy into that. I'll never accept it. It's going to be one of those things I never accept. Like, if the trade went down. But it's all, the damage is done now. I don't know why I'm lashing out. Who cares? The point is, Tyler Herro and Kel'el Ware are working out together. You know, it's Goosey's galore. Let's hope this leads to some great things for this Heat season, because, you know, for O'Connor here to be like they're going nowhere. Well, look, man, I don't know what they do for bulletin board material, but if I heard that would piss me off. Like, nobody believes that these young cats can do anything. And and those guys are kind of like, hey, you know, Bam is 28 now. That is your prime. I'm not expecting a Bam leap, but I'm certainly expecting a Bam bounce back to not have as much of a lull in the first half of this season, and I do think that will help. But Tyler, being in a better situation, having a clearer set of role, I do hope can still vault a little bit, because I do think that we saw some big steps happen last year, especially before the All-Star break. And you know, Kel'el's the wild. Kel'el and Nico, man, those guys are wild cards. Those ones to me, that's going to determine if there are things we don't expect to happen this year with the team happen. But in the meanwhile, it's good to see Tyler Herro's doing some things in the offseason to help Ware along the way.